Tokyo Road Race is an arcade-style racing game that was released for the PlayStation in 2001 and was developed by Taito Corporation. And this game is a part of an arcade version in Japan that went under the name of Battle Gear 2. So if you've ever played Battle Gear 2 in the arcades, or even if you've played the Japanese version, you will be very familiar with this game. And the game offers up a multitude of different cars with over 40 cars to choose from 6 manufacturers in total. And the game has a variety of different courses to choose from, while giving you access to different game modes from free run to arcade and time attack. There are some subtle differences regarding the versions, with the likes of Battle Gear 2 having more intricate tracks to race on, with Tokyo Road Race, when you're starting off, one of the tracks has been changed out for an oval race track that would have been very familiar or seen in the likes of Gran Turismo and even the NASCAR type racing games. But essentially this is technically the same game as Battle Gear 2, but it is a fun racing game. It's very arcade in its nature. Again, it is an arcade port, but it's very reflective in its graphics and its visual style. But for its time on the PS1, visually it's a very good looking game. It had really good use of graphics, really good gameplay style and elements, although it might not be as well refined compared to other later racers seen on the system. For a very early PlayStation 2 game, this was a very good example of a very graphically impressive experience, and just general all-round good gameplay overall. And with the selection of cars available, again, you had anything from Mitsubishi to Honda, Mazda, Nissan, with the likes of the iconic Lancer Evolution 3, 4, 5, 6. You had the Nissan Skyline R32, RT33, even the R34 Skyline GTRs, the Honda EK9 Civic Type R, the Integra Type R, the Honda NSX, the Subaru Impreza 22B STI, the Mazda RX-7, Toyota Supra, Toyota Celica GT4. Like, you name it, this game has an incredible selection of cars. While it may not be as vast as, say, Gran Turismo or other games, the cars that are in this game are so iconic, and it's just awesome. If you're a fan of JDM classics, this game will definitely have you covered for sure. And it's just generally a very fun game to play overall. While it's not as refined compared to many other racers on the system, and again, it is a difficult game in some respects, because the tracks that you do race on, while the handling is good, it can take a little bit of getting used to when you're first starting out. And the tracks that you do race on later on in the game are very difficult because they're very narrow. So not only do you have to contend with trying to overtake your opponents while trying to win the races, you also have to contend with very narrow environments to race on. So you have to make sure that you don't hit walls that'll slow you down, because the collision detection in the game can be somewhat of a downside to the game. That's the only really gripe with the game, as when you hit something, it kind of puts your mind of the earlier Ridge Racer games. It can slow you down almost instantly and can really hamper your progress throughout the race. And especially in the later levels, on the more narrower and windier tracks, especially when you're racing on the mountains, you'll find that with this game you have to have an almost perfect or flawless run in order to have any chance of even attempting to win a race. But even at that, it's still very difficult. Even with a flawless run, you'll still struggle to get near first place. You will get close in some regards, depending on how good you race, and even depending on the car that you're using at the time, but you will still struggle with this game because it is tough. But I think it's generally a very good game, and a very good early version of a racing game seen on the PS2. Again, it has really nice graphics. I love the visual style of it. The graphics on it are very bright and vibrant, and it just really suits the whole gameplay aesthetic. The tracks are very diverse, even though they are very narrow. The graphics and the presence of the cars are brilliant, and even the sound effects of the cars as well. They've all got their own unique sounds that are unique to their own brands, which I think is pretty cool. The only issue with it is that the game, especially later on, is quite difficult. It will take you some time to get used to the various dynamics and the handling characteristics of each of the cars, but you will struggle in the later levels to try and win the games. But the advantage you have is that you have the majority of tracks and cars available pretty much from the offset, so you can just have at it and just have a lot of fun. But again, it just will take practice to get familiar with everything the game has to offer. It just is a fun, quick pick up and play game in all respects to it, and considering it's an arcade port, it has all of the arcade appeal. It is a very good port of a very good arcade game, in all fairness to it. It has really good graphics, and it just has a really good visual style. Like I said, again, I love the visual style of it. It's a really cool looking game, and this here would prove that, because its later sequel, Battle Gear 3, in all honest opinion, and I have mentioned this in previous videos on racing games, I only played Battle Gear 3 not too long ago. Even when I just started this channel, I'd never heard of Battle Gear 3, and I managed to get the chance to play it. And oh boy, for me, it's easily one of the best games I've ever played on the PS2, hands down. Like, and I loved the likes of Gran Turismo and a lot of other games, but I didn't realise how good Battle Gear 3 is. But I didn't realise at the same time that this game that I owned years ago, because I owned Tokyo Road Race graphics. I didn't even know that this was its predecessor, which is quite crazy when you think about it. But now, playing it years later, you can see the references behind it, and you can see that where the graphics came from, because this is a very good looking game in its own right, which it is. But Battle Gear 3 for me is definitely right up there with the best that the PlayStation has to offer, especially when you look at the likes of Gran Turismo. Battle Gear 3 is equally as just as a beautiful looking game. If anything, it's visually stunning. It's definitely right up there among some of the best looking races I've ever seen. And again, it has its own unique mix of cars, elements, great use of tracks, fantastic handling, physics and dynamics. But the one thing it has improved on, aside from the visuals, it definitely has improved on the variety of the tracks and the layouts, and the tracks are a lot more wider. They're not as narrow compared to that of the second game, which is definitely a plus. And I highly recommend that you try out both games. If you're a fan of Japanese style racing games, they are definitely worth a shout, in my opinion. And I definitely recommend you check out the third game. I have done a previous video on Battle Gear 3 on the channel, so I will leave a link to that in the description, and you will see how good that is. It's just visually stunning. But in all honesty, it still doesn't take away from this game. I think this game is a lot of fun, although it is more difficult, I will admit, to get into, but it's still a lot of fun once you get used to the handling dynamics and the physics of the game. It is a very good all-round experience that is definitely worth your time. And the cool thing about this game is it has enough pick up and play appeal that will cater to the more casual player as well, that if you want to play it for a quick blast and play it through for a few minutes here and there, you can definitely do that. So it is a lot of fun, and I highly recommend you do check it out. And I would love to know your thoughts on Tokyo Road Race, or even for instance Battle Gear 2, and if you have played them back in the day, and if so, what do you think of this game in general? Do you enjoy these type of arcade racers, or maybe not so much? I'd love to hear whatever thoughts you have of this game, so be sure to share it down in the comments below. And if you have enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel and hit that bell to be updated with future videos. And if you would like to see more content on the channel around other types of games seen on the PS2, then be sure to check out the playlist here on screen to see more of those games in action. And I will see you all in the next one.